Okay, so today I wanted to actually start off by just reading a little excerpt from this sutta. So the suttas were actually they are the Buddhist scriptures, and this particular sutta is called the Ani Sutta, which literally means the pack. And in this sutta, the Buddha was talking about the future. His future, which means that it's probably referring to our present moment right now. And the reason why I think that this sutta is actually important is that I want to talk about like fake Buddha quotes. So fake Buddha quotes are quite a big problem. There is actually an entire website called fakebuddhaquotes.com, which I actually shared on the Facebook group. So this guy actually went to investigate. If you go on Facebook and you've got friends sharing all the memes and like quotes, supposed quotes from the Buddha, you realize that there's actually a lot of like fake Buddha quotes out there. And when I went through this list of 25 quotes that were mixed between like real Buddha quotes and fake Buddha quotes, I couldn't tell the difference actually. So I'll test you guys later on. So anyway, I'll just start off by reading this Ani Sutta, and this is actually what the Buddha said. In the future time, there will be bhikkhus, which is monks, who will not listen to the utterance of such discourses which are agata, which is how the Buddha always referred to himself in the scriptures. They will not listen to the utterances of discourses which are words of the Buddha, which are profound and meaning, leading beyond the world, consistently connected with emptiness. Instead, they will not bend ear, they will not apply their mind on knowledge, they will not consider those teachings as to be taken up and mastered. On the contrary, they will listen to the utterance of such discourses, which are literary compositions made by poets, witty words, witty letters, by people from outside, meaning that they are not Buddhists, or the words of disciples. So they will listen to those, they will lend ear, they will apply their mind on such knowledge, and they will consider those teachings as to be taken up and mastered. So if I just stop here, it's very, very cheap to use this English phrase. What these two paragraphs are saying is that the Buddha himself is saying that in the future, the monks will actually no longer listen to what the Buddha himself actually said. And these are words that are actually very profound, that will actually lead to liberation. But instead, people will listen to words that are made by poets, words that are witty, by people who are not Buddhists, who will actually not really that familiar with the teachings of the Buddha, or they listen to words of disciples. So, like people, which is something you see nowadays, right? People will say, "Oh, who's your teacher?" And people will say, "Oh, my teacher is like Ajahn Brahm." "Oh, who's your teacher?" "Oh, I follow like Thanissaro Bhikkhu." "Oh, who's your teacher?" "I follow Ajahn Chah." But nobody stops to say, actually my teacher is really the Buddha. Right? And that's exactly what the Buddha is saying. This is like 2,500 years ago that he said that this is what will happen. People will listen to the words of the disciples and not the word of the Buddha himself. Therefore, bhikkhus, you should train thus. We will listen to the utterance of such discourses, which are words of the Tathagata, profound in meaning, leading beyond the world, meaning that it will actually lead to the jhanas and to liberation, consistently connected with emptiness, and we will lend ear and apply our mind on such knowledge and consider those teachings as to be taken up and to be mastered. So that's how you should train yourself. So that's what the Buddha himself actually said. You should actually listen to what he said and then apply, understand, and then actually practice, and not listen to fake Buddha quotes. So all the Facebook posts or memes, I think a lot of them are well-meaning, and to be fair, a lot of these are paraphrasing of like what the Buddha actually thought. But I think that we should go back to what is the core, what actually are the core teachings of the Buddha. And it's fine for you to actually understand all these fake Buddha quotes, right? And to see and to appreciate the teacher's description of how you should practice. But I think we should always go back to the core. What exactly did the Buddha teach and what did he not teach? And the reason is because there are a lot of misconstrued myths out there. Things like I've heard many people say before that, all paths lead to the same end. Which, if you think about it logically, doesn't make any sense at all, right? If all paths lead to the same end, and then it doesn't matter what we're doing, then we shouldn't be here. There's no point like listening to and trying to understand like, what actually is the Eightfold Path and like, walking the proper path. Right? And if all paths lead to the same end, then by that logic, everyone should be enlightened. Which is not the case. There are people who lose their temper. Like to Auntie's question last week, like whether am I like, always as calm and like not agitated. When it comes to certain things, I still get animated. Like if I get into a fight with my wife, for example, naturally I get agitated. And that clearly means I'm not enlightened. Because the sign of an enlightened being is actually the complete, it's not just that this person's like calm and peaceful, but that is the complete uprooting of the underlying tendency to sensual desire, the underlying tendency to anger. So meaning that you can never actually get an enlightened being you can never actually piss off an enlightened being, right? So that's something that the Buddha himself actually said that this is how you should test an enlightened being. So if this is the case, that this is really a possibility, then the logic that all paths lead to the same end doesn't make any sense. And in fact, in one of the sutras, the Buddha actually describes like all the various ways that there are these like wrong views, which is the reason why the first factor, the Eightfold Path of right view, is so bloody long. If you read Majjhima Nikaya number 9, the Samaditthi Sutta, right view, expounded by Sariputta, it's really, really very long. It's actually one of the longest suttas in the entire Majjhima Nikaya, which I think I mentioned before. So you can actually go over this, you can look up suttacentral.net and actually see for yourself like, how long each of these suttas are. So coming back to it, like, why is it important for us to have like right view? And I think I'll elaborate that a little bit later on. But getting the understanding of like, what actually is taught by the Buddha and figuring out for ourselves, that this is what the Buddha actually said. This is actually the real teachings. And more importantly, to try it out for ourselves and to see for yourself, does it work? Does it not work? This is actually what the Buddha actually expels. It's not just about blindly following that, okay, so we figure out this is what the Buddha said, let's just blindly follow it. But it's, okay, since the Buddha actually said this, and this is what the Buddha actually taught, let's try it out and see how do you apply this in your daily life. Does this lead to more peace, more happiness, more calmness, or does it not? So if I would just take a little break, just to talk a little bit of how to summarize like a right view and why right view is important. So Ajahn Brahm, whom I consider to be one of my teachers, he told the story before that when he was a young man and he went to Scotland, into the Highlands, walking around. And he was with this hostel guide up in the mountains, and they were looking up at this other peak, that was like very high up in the distance. So the guide told him, I'm going to go back to the hostel, so why don't you just go by yourself up, that higher peak. And so Ajahn Brahm then, as a young man, said, okay, sure, and he went, and he said that was actually a very big mistake that he did. Because actually every year there are people who are like lost in the highlands and they end up like dying from exposure and like starvation and so forth. So what happened was that when he was walking up that mountain, it was a clear day, like kind of like today, and when he was up at the peak, all of a sudden like the mist just descended on the entire mountain, and he said he couldn't see anything, he couldn't see like beyond his hand. So he thought that, and he said, at that point in time, he thought he had a good sense of direction, so he decided to retrace his steps. So he walked back. And he walked back, and all of a sudden he came across this cliff that just went straight down. And he's like, oh dear, I'm completely lost then. I have no idea where I'm going, because I thought I was going back my path, but actually I'm coming straight to the cliff that was not there before. So at that point in time, he stopped and asked himself, okay, so what should I do? And he, as a physicist, then he was like, okay, one thing that is constant is that there will always, water will always flow down. So he decided, let me just walk around and figure out, is there a stream? If there's a stream, I'll follow that stream. It should lead me down to another stream, and it should just keep going downwards, and that should probably bring me into the right direction. that's a very smart thing to do because that's exactly what happened. He followed one stream, and that stream joined with another stream and became an even bigger stream, became a brook. And then before you know it, he was actually beneath the clouds. He could see where exactly he was. And then he was able to like, figure his way back to the hostel, where he then went to go and scold the hostel keeper. And Ajahn gave a very interesting perspective because he said that that's actually how we should view right view. Right view is anything that actually helps you become more peaceful, more calm. Because that's ultimately where the path is pointing to, actually. The path is what leads you towards like more letting go, more kindness. Basically, if you summarize it, more wholesome mental states arising and less of the defilements. So it's something that gives you more peace, more kindness, more gentleness, less anger, less wanting, less irritation in your parents and whatever not, right? Then that's the right way. And that's a very good starting point. So that's something to bear in mind, right, as you walk the path. That's something to test out. So anyway, so I've spoken this thing about like a quote from the Buddha where he talks about all these fake quotes. Let's do a test. There are 25 of these quotes, but let's just do 10. I'll read the quote and then you tell me whether you think this is real. Okay, we'll just do a show of hands. Okay, first quote. However many holy words you read, however many that you speak, what good will they do if you do not act upon them? So is that a real quote or a fake quote of the Buddha? So who thinks it's real? Everyone thinks it's fake, is it? Everyone thinks it's fake? Just guess, I mean you've got a 50% chance of getting it right, it's like even better odds than like gambling in the stock market. Yeah. No takers? Fake? Yeah, okay, it's actually a real quote. Yeah, so I thought it was fake as well when I first read it. I was like, oh wow, okay. So this one is a real quote, right? So however many holy words you read or you speak, what good will they do if you don't act upon them? That's a real quote. The way is not the sky, the way is in the heart. Is that a real quote or a fake quote? Real quote. Fake quote, okay. Fake? Okay, so this one is totally fake. Yeah. A jar fills drop by drop. Real quote. Real quote? Real? Why do you say it's real? Yeah, just out of curiosity. Practicality. Okay, yeah, this one is a real quote actually. So moving on to the fourth one, like every human being is the author of his own health or disease. Real? So how many say it's real actually? This is true. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many says it's fake? 1, 2. Okay, so 4 versus 2. It's fake. Yeah. So now you know that I read this, I was like, wow, this is really hard to tell. Yeah. To understand everything is to forgive everything. So how many says it's real? And how many says it's fake? Fake? Who says it's real? Real. Okay, so 2 real, 4 fake. Okay, 3 real. Who says it's fake? 3. Okay, so 3. Yeah, it's fake as well, actually. Yeah, I don't think we're doing too well, right? It's in the same way that I completely flunked this when I did this last night. Better than 1,000 words, better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. Is that real? How many says it's real? Like this is real. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many says it's fake? 1. So many that are not decided. Yeah, actually this one is a real quote actually. I remember reading this in the Dhammapada, so this is actually a pretty good real quote. So, number 7, whatever words we utter should be chosen with care, for people will hear them and be influenced by them for good or ill. How many says it's real? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many says it's fake? 1, 6 to 1. It's completely fake. Yeah. Yeah, so just 3 more and then we will completely conclude that we are terrible at doing this kind of thing. Number 8, no one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. No, we ourselves must walk the path. No one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. So how many says it's real? Okay, majority of people. How many says it's fake? Nobody. Yeah. It's a little bit of both. The middle part actually is like completely fake. Yeah. So, but actually it's very, very close actually to the real thing. So, yeah. So number 9, in a controversy, the instant we feel anger, we already cease striving for truth and have begun striving for ourselves. So how many says it's real? 1. How many says it's fake? Yay, yeah, okay, this one is actually not, it's actually quite fake. So last one. In the sky, there's no distinction of east and west. People create distinctions out of their own minds and then believe them to be true. So who says it's real? Huh? You said it's real as well. Okay, how many says it's fake? Majority says it's fake. Okay, good. Yeah, that was not the Buddha. Yeah. So you can see, right, just by just reading this random post on fake Buddha quotes there's so many of these quotes that are circulating, and these are actually taken from actual Facebook memes. So people have been like sharing them on like the Buddhist group on Facebook or Buddhist friends and stuff like that. And you can tell that it's actually not easy to pick up. So the person who is the author of fakebuddhaquotes.com, he is something of a self-taught scholar in Pali, and he himself actually has trouble at figuring out. So he actually does a lot of research, like, okay, where is this from? And you do Google searches, you actually search the suttas as well, figure out, like, is this actually the real source before he actually figures out and says real or not real. So I highly recommend you all to check out like the Fake Buddha Quotes website, and you can see for yourself. But Fake Buddha Quotes aside, right, let's go back to like what the Buddha actually said. And I wanted to also share this sutta which is often misquoted because people tend to cherry pick like what they want to read, and they go, hey, see, the Buddha says like we should do this, like, so for example, the first half of this sutta I'm going to read is about the concept of like good friends, right? Kalyana Mitta, or admirable friends or good friends. So a lot of people use this sutta to justify how Buddhist societies should do all kinds of like fun activities, like go out on day trips to eat durian, or like go out to like visit like restaurants and stuff like that. Because the Buddha said like good friends is actually everything, right? It's, so you should go ahead and do this. But that's not exactly what the Buddha said. You actually have to fully understand the entire context of what the Buddha said, right? Before you actually pick out how to apply this into your daily life. So this is actually from the Samyutta Nikaya number 45, second sutta. It's called Half the Holy Life. So thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling among the Sakyans, where there was a town named Nagaraka. Then the Venerable Ananda approached the Blessed One. Having approached, he paid homage to the Blessed One, sat down to one side, and said to him, Venerable Sir, which is basically Bhante, Venerable Sir, this is half of the holy life, that is, good friendship, good companionship, good comradeship. To which the Blessed One said, not so, Ananda, not so. This is the entire of the holy life, Ananda, that is, good friendship, good companionship, good comradeship. When a bhikkhu, or a lay person, or anybody has a good friend, a good companion, a good comrade, it is to be expected that he will develop and cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path. So people tend to just stop here, and then they use that to justify their social activities. But importantly is actually I'll just go to read the rest of the sutta, and you can see for yourself actually how the whole context is very different from cherry picking. And how Ananda does a bhikkhu who has a good friend, a good companion, a good comrade, develop and cultivate the Eightfold Path. Here, Ananda, a bhikkhu develops right view, which is based upon seclusion, dispassion, and cessation, maturing and release. So what does it mean by right view is based upon seclusion, dispassion, and cessation? It means actually that seclusion, dispassion, and cessation, right? So, okay, does everybody understand like these words to begin with? Seclusion, dispassion, and cessation. Seclusion means actually to withdraw from yourself, to withdraw actually to be alone. But there are two meanings in Buddhism when you say about seclusion. Seclusion from other people. It can also mean seclusion of the five senses, which is actually the two ways that in the sutras they actually are talking about. So for example, when they talk about the first jhana, which I briefly mentioned in my previous first talk, right, where I experienced the Yoyo jhana, what happens in the first jhana is actually that your mind actually becomes completely separated from the five senses. And this actually is what is a meaning of seclusion as well. It's not just about, oh, I'm going to go hide in my cave and hide in my room and lock the door and not say hi to other people. But it's also about actually, you can actually be seated amongst everybody here, meditating, and you're completely, entirely just separated by yourself because you're already withdrawn from the five senses. So that's actually one of the meanings of like seclusion. Dispassion actually means to actually not engage with your emotions and your passion. So when you actually experience a thought, you don't go on and catch on to it. Oh yeah, I need to like think about what delivery that should be coming soon, but it's almost late. You don't think about that. But instead, when the thought comes, you just go, oh, okay, that was a thought. You just let it go past. When you have an emotion that, oh, there's the sensation of anger that arises. Oh, that's the anger that came. And just let it pass. So the dispassion actually is about just letting it go. So it's not about grasping at it. Cessation is actually just letting it just fade away. So when emotion arises, you don't try to use your will to, oh, I should not be angry. No, why am I angry? This is becoming worse. And you're just feeding the vicious cycle. You're just feeding like Mara, so to speak. Instead, just let it apply dispassion, and then cessation will very naturally happen, where the emotion will just like move away. So this is what is meant. And it's quite different from like the way that people think of it. Oh yeah, just admirable friendship, so we just go like, party, just talk and all that stuff. But instead, if you think about it, based on seclusion, dispassion, and cessation, this means actually that it's actually very important for each of us to practice this in our daily lives and to practice like meditation to some extent. Right? Because you talk about seclusion of yourself, seclusion of the five senses, you need to actually like cultivate like meditation to be able to successfully do so. So that's what the Buddha said. And he talks about the rest of the Eightfold Path, also talking about right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right endeavor, right mindfulness, right stillness, which is based upon seclusion, dispassion, cessation, maturing and release, meaning that you're completely liberated from all the outflowings of your mind. It is in this way that a bhikkhu who has a good friend, a good companion, a good comrade, develops and cultivates the Noble Eightfold Path. By the following method too, Ananda, it may be understood how the entire holy life is good friendship, good companionship, good comradeship. By relying upon me as a good friend, Ananda, beings subject to birth are freed from birth. Beings subject to aging are freed from aging. Beings subject to death are freed from death. Beings subject to sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair are freed from sorrow, lamentation, pain, pleasure, and despair. By this method, Ananda, how the entire holy life is good friendship, good companionship, good comradeship. So we notice this entire paragraph where the Buddha talks about himself as the good friend. It's completely missing from a lot of the usual people because they just take the first half. Oh yeah, let's go party, that's great, fantastic. No, actually you need to go back to what the Buddha actually taught. Because the Buddha is your best friend. Meaning, if you are actually just secluded by yourself, every day you read the sutras, but you actually practice it, in your daily life, the Eightfold Path. You meditate every day, you have the right view, meaning that you're constantly cultivating the view and the perceptions that help you become more still, more peaceful, less angry, less craving. When you do things, you have the right intentions of like letting go, being kind, being gentle. When you speak, you are applying, the principles of like right speech. You don't lie, you don't speak harsh speech, you don't manipulate people and go, oh, this person actually said this and he's terrible. He said he's a terrible person. Things like that. You don't do any of all those stuff. You choose your livelihood such that you're not dealing with, you're not in the slave trade, or you're not dealing with drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. You do whatever it takes to actually, when you have got wholesome mental states that these persist, and you actually, those that have not arisen, you actually do the effort to actually help them to arise. The unwholesome mental states that have arisen, they diminish with time and actually don't appear after that. That kind of right effort. And then you are actually mindful of the four satipatthana, which we'll cover later. And then better still, one fine day as you're sitting down, meditating, all of a sudden you experience the jhanas. And that's like the best, the biggest bliss you've ever experienced in your whole life. Then you've begun actually walking this path. And to quote the shorter discourse of the elephant's footprint, if you experience the jhanas, so there are some places, like for example in Sri Lanka, there are these supposed footprints of the Buddha. And if you go to Tibet, the same thing, they're like this Buddha's footprints, right? But in the shorter discourse of the elephant's footprint, the Buddha actually said that one of the markings of the Buddha actually is experiencing the jhanas. That is a marking of, that he has made. So meaning that whatever jhana you experience, right, if you experience a proper real jhana, it's exactly the same jhana that the Buddha experienced under the rosebud tree, under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya. So that actually is really the markings of the Buddha, and you are actually seeing for yourself what is the Buddha's footprint. And you are, by doing all this with this practice, even if you're stuck in your own room every day, you are actually walking the Eightfold Path. And you actually, because you have the Buddha as your best friend, your Kalyana mentor. And that's actually important for us, and that's actually the whole purpose and why we're here today. So this is why I think that it's important for us to actually cultivate our understanding of the Buddha's words. And to repeat myself again, when I'm back after 2 weeks in June, we will start off in a more lively way. So the format I have I'm thinking of is going to be less of me lecturing, but more that I'll run through, I'll explain, and then we'll have a brief discussion. And I think the important thing is for us to also discuss what are the challenges that you face in applying these principles in your daily life actually. So that's really the intent of this course as well. And also for you to practice every day as best as you can. Yeah. So that's what I have for today. I think I don't want to talk too much as well. So are there any questions, comments, feedback? Yes?
Just now you mentioned the word jhanas. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. What does it mean?
So jhana is actually a Pali word. Do you speak Chinese?
Yes.
So in Chinese, the term chan, like chanzong, which means to meditate, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, actually that's exactly the same meaning as jhanas actually. So it was translated into Chinese as chan. Yeah. So jhana and in the Pali is jayati. It's actually very linked to the modern Hindi is dhyan as well, which means paying attention, right? So it's actually the same meaning, where it's actually all about meditation actually. So jhanas, in the Buddhist context, when we talk about the first, second, third, fourth jhanas, these are different states of very, very deep meditation, where you already are past the part where you're already beyond focusing on the breath actually. Instead, what actually happens is that your mind is completely separated from the five senses. So somebody who's actually in the jhanas, in the first jhana, I think you can still disturb and control the person by shouting at the person or kicking them or whatever. But from the second to the fourth jhanas onwards, even if you slap that person, move that person, they will not actually awake. but they're not dead because they're still warm actually. So that's one of the ways to tell whether somebody's in jhanas or whether the person has died, is to feel whether the body is still warm. If the body is cold, right, then you should just cremate the body. But if the body is still warm, that means that person still has that life energy and is still there. So that's actually what the jhana states are. For your benefit, maybe I'll just talk briefly about what the 4 jhanas are about. First jhanas, what happens is that you will be separated from your 5 senses, and this is characterized by this ecstasy. And there's also this phenomenon of what is very badly translated as initial and sustained thought, but that's actually not thought. It's actually, what happens is that your mind will move to the object which is just pure ecstasy, and it will actually move away. So the mind will actually keep moving back and forth, like towards and away from the mental object which is just bliss. When you move into the second jhana, and this one I'm just basing it on the descriptions in the sutras because I've not experienced it myself. What actually happens is that your ability to move, right, actually completely disappears. So you will still experience this bliss and this joy, but what happens is that your mind and your will actually disappears. So the first jhana, your 5 senses disappear. Second jhana, your sense of your will actually completely disappears. The third jhana, that's when you've got joy and rapture and joy as well as like happiness. You will actually see the difference between the two. So you will actually have like joy and rapture will actually like disappear, and you will actually have this very pure like happiness. And then the 4th jhana, you will actually have this state of perfect mindfulness and equanimity, meaning that it's neither happy, there's no happiness at all actually, but you're just fully and completely aware. And this is something that the Buddha describes as that your mind is so malleable, it can be directed to anything after you come out. So those are the 4 jhana states. And it sounds completely alien to you right now because it is actually a very alien state. The Buddha actually described the first jhana as the ending of the world as you know it. Because it's actually the first time that you would directly experience what is it like to have none of the 5 senses. And it's actually a very strange experience. It's a very beautiful, blissful experience, but it will completely blow your mind out of the water. So I'm not sure if that helps answer your question. The other thing to also note is that the progression of the jhanas is not due to willpower. You can't will yourself to get into the 4th jhana. So I have to caveat here because in the sutta sometimes they talk about like some of these very advanced meditators who they describe as being able to go into the jhanas at will, but that's a very bad translation. What they actually are talking about is just that they can enter into the 4 jhanas like whenever they want to. So I actually asked my teacher Ajahn Brahm once, like, how is it possible that somebody can go into the jhanas at will? So he gave a very interesting analogy. He said that imagine that the jhana states are actually the default for these people, and it actually takes effort for them to get out of the jhana states. So when they don't have to engage with the world, then they just go back to the default. So that's actually one way to think about like these very advanced meditators, that their advanced states is actually like their default state is actually the jhanas. Then when they are not engaging with the world, then they will go back to the default. So that's why they're able to go to the deep states of meditation very easily. Yeah. But one step at a time, we're very far away from that. At least in this life. So yeah, hopefully that helps answer your question. Yeah. Any other questions? Comments? Is it too dry? Is it too boring? You can tell me. I can take it. That's fine. No, seriously. If you all don't feel comfortable telling me, you can tell a friend, and then tell me, that's fine as well. Yeah. Okay, if there's nothing further, then shall we just do a very short loving kindness guided meditation, then we can end today's session. Yeah?